track here. This is the Community Economic Development Committee meeting, May 20th, 21. Mandy, go ahead.
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy? Mr. Peterson? Mr. Constant?
He is at a port meeting.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Ms. Zalatel?
Here.
Chair, currently there's not a quorum. So if some of the other members join, we can take action at the meeting, but right now we can't. So we'll see if some of the other members join. So for non-committee members, Mr. Rivera? Mr. Perez-Verdia? Ms. Allard?
I'm here, and I'd like to add that Ms. Kennedy's on the road, so I don't think she's going to be able to join us.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Ms. LaFrance?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I texted Chris. He said he might be able to jump over if we need a quorum. So well, let's go ahead. We can still get started then. And the first one is Alaskagreenworks. So Mandy, you want to go ahead and talk about the licensing?
Yes. So this is the license application review for Alaskagreenworks cultivation license. All of the license restrictions were addressed in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due. All of the safety and security requirements were also addressed in the operating plan, and all of the cultivation license specific requirements were also addressed. So there were no additional conditions that are recommended for the license.
Okay, thank you. And is Sean here?
This is Sean with
Sean with Alaskagreenworks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, we got two Seans.
Yeah,
we're talking to Sean O'Dell, but I'm sorry. We should go around the room too. I think that was a Eugene Haberman recommendation that I think was good. So sorry if we could back up a bit. So who from staff is here? Municipal staff.
Sean O'Dell with Current Planning.
Yeah, Ryan Yell with Current Planning.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Constant is here.
All right, welcome. Do we have other staff? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is Pete.
Oh, good. Good. We got the gang here. Thanks, Pete.
So other staff, I'm Mandy Honest. I'm with the municipal clerk's office. And then I see the interpreters are on, and Dean Gates, municipal attorney or assembly attorney, is on. And then other than that, I think it's public.
Okay, so we have Sean Clark here. Was there anyone else from your operation, Sean?
Nope, just myself. Thank you.
I might call you Mr. Clark so we don't get confused with Sean O'Dell. Okay, and then who else on the phone?
I am on the phone, correct.
There's a number ending in 9676 if you'd like to state your name.
Michelle Velasco with Superb Retail and Cultivation.
All right, welcome.
There's 9449 on the phone if you'd like to state your name.
Yes, Eugene Haberman, but please note, you need a quorum to conduct a meeting. Constance got on right now, and that might be a quorum, but you can't be conducting a meeting.
Mr. Chair,
you don't have a
this
quorum.
is inappropriate.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Haberman.
To bring that up, okay?
Thank you. Was there anyone else on the phones, Mandy?
Nope, that's it. And for the record, there is a quorum currently.
All right, thank you. Okay, so back, Sean, if you could go through the Title 21 part of this, the Alaskagreenworks.
Okay, I'm Sean O'Dell with Current Planning, and Alaskagreenworks is requesting a special land use permit for a marijuana cultivation facility within an I-1 industrial district. The site is located southwest of the intersection of 88th Street and Arlon Street, one block west of Lake Otis Parkway. So that's near the Walgreens on Lake Otis Parkway. The proposed establishment will be located within an existing structure. Approximately 2,400 square feet of available interior space is dedicated to cultivation operations. They're going to be operating the facility 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. On May 3rd, the planning department mailed 116 public hearing notices. No comments from the public were received, and the community council didn't comment yet either as well. The applicant went through a non-conforming determination last year in June 30th. So they are covered with their snow storage areas, landscape screening and fencing, the off-street parking requirements, vehicle circulation and access. They're providing a parking lot with that meets the parking standards. They're going to have the required 3 and 1 van accessible space. Their site plan meets the accessible routes standards. And with that, we recommend approval of the cultivation facility, and we have the 6 standard conditions there in the staff packet. And they've been, Sean's been working with the planning department for a long time here, so he's on top of everything and has been working through everything to be a good cultivator.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any comments from the committee? I'm watching the chat if people want to get in. Okay. I had a question. Looking at the I guess the as-built for the property, there's a one of the, I guess there's a new building that this operation would go in, it looks like, and then there's an existing building, and there was a label on one that said existing cultivation.
Let me take a
Page
look.
27.
That's of the application.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the kind of bigger, we got the full packet to look at. So 27 of, well, let me scroll down.
There's a garage, a 1-story commercial building, and then there was a Connex there.
Oh, 27's not working for me here, which?
It's all an existing building. I know Sean's not building anything extra.
Okay, I wonder, that's interesting. Okay, well, I'm looking now. I wonder if I got this confused with one of the other licenses, because this doesn't
Maybe.
look, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Seems odd, but,
No
okay,
problem.
so, yeah, okay, so it's the only operation on that lot.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
My error there. Meg, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to note, I see that the community meeting happened during the summer of 2020, but that the Abbott Loop Community Council has a newly reinvigorated alcohol and marijuana subcommittee of their council. So while I think the standard was met here, I would really encourage establishment of a relationship with that committee that is newly formed and has a new chair and has been trying to establish those relationships. Thanks.
Good information. Thanks, Meg.
Thanks. Okay, anything else from the committee? Okay, Mr. Clark, did you have a moment to speak? And maybe address, your relationship with the community council and so on.
Yeah, this is Mr. Clark. I reached out to the community council last summer, and they really hadn't responded back to me whatsoever. And so I just went ahead and did my postings and held my meeting as normal. They haven't reached out to me, so it's good to hear that they have had put together some sort of council to address these licenses, because like I said, I reached and had no contact with anybody. I've reached out to them several different times last summer. So.
Okay. So when you say reached out, how did you do that?
Via email and voice message. I can't remember who it was. It's been over a year ago now, or it has been a year ago now. I could look back in my notes, but yeah, I really didn't get any kind of feedback from them at all. And so that was at the time when, you know, nobody was doing any meetings or anything like that. So we ended up just holding the required meeting at our location there at Arlon.
Okay. No, that sounds good. They've had the same chair. It's a fairly active community council, so it's worth giving them a call again, I think. Meg, do they meet again in May? This is
something
mid-May.
going on. They had no meetings planned, but they were doing a possible dog walk or something like that, if I remember correctly, in June. But that wasn't going to be the place or time to hold a meeting at the dog walk, so we elected just to have it at our own location.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they are a community council that does not typically meet during the summer except for an informal barbecue type gathering. And the recent elections in that community council established a new alcohol and marijuana committee, or a new reinvigorated one, I should say. So Dustin Sherman is the chair of that. And then, of course, Bruce Roberts remains the community council president. So those are two good contacts, just to let them know that, you know, you're the one to get in touch with, I think would be a good start. But the summer is always tough for that community council.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Meg. Okay, well, thanks, Mr. Clark. So often on these, when we review these licenses, the committee will have a vote whether or not to recommend to the full body approval of the license. So it's really just a recommendation of the full body. So a yes or no vote from this committee doesn't, you pass the license through the assembly. It would only be on Tuesday when we look at this, and generally either myself or Crystal Kennedy will make a comment on what the committee voted. So I'd encourage you to be there if you can. Either we have telephone testimony, so you don't have to be physically there, or you could be in the chamber. So, having said that, so to the committee, do we have a recommendation?
I recommend approval by a recommendation of approval by the committee.
Second.
Okay, is that Meg?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, and this is Pete, the seconded.
All right, thanks. Any opposition to that? Okay, so on Tuesday, we'll let everyone know that we had a recommendation to approve. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is Eagle Street Plant. Is that Mandy? Would you like to go through the licensing on that one?
Yes. So this was a license review for the application for Eagle Street Plant for a cultivation license. They addressed all of their general license restrictions in their operating plan. There were no taxes, fees, or fines found due. They addressed all of the safety and security requirements in their operating plan as well. And all of the cultivation specific requirements were addressed in their operating plan. So there were no additional conditions recommended for this license.
Okay, thank you. This, I just want to, so before you go, Ryan, is there a representative from the applicant here?
I'm Daniel Clift. I'm a representative. I'm here with Christopher Hayes, also representative, and we've got Jonna Welton with us here as well, who I see just unmuted herself.
Yep, I'm here too, Jana Weltzine.
Okay.
How's everyone doing?
Okay, good. So you've got the routine from our first one. So we'll go through the various issues here, and then we'll give you a chance to talk. So thank you all for coming. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Ryan Yell from the Current Planning Division, and this is a request for a special land use permit for a marijuana cultivation facility within an I-1 district, and this site is located north of the intersection at East International Airport Road and Eagle Street. The proposed establishment will be in a newly designed and constructed industrial structure comprising of approximately 3,528 square feet of available interior space dedicated to marijuana cultivation operations. Planned business hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. There is another marijuana cultivation facility on site, Catalyst Cannabis Company. That was approved back in 2016, and that may be the as-built or site plan that you were referencing earlier, Mr. Chair, where you had talked about an existing cultivation facility on site. However, Catalyst Cannabis is not under the same ownership, and it's not tied in any way to this facility other than its physical location. The only special conditions of approval, we do have the odor monitoring that we place on all cultivation facilities, but also condition number 7 was added, and it's just, there were just some details that were missed in the or not missed, but excluded out of the application for the planting detail and species list for the landscape plan. And just to verify compliance with the landscaping standards, we just need those submitted for review. And on May 3rd, 2021, the planning department did mail out 114 public hearing notices. And as of this writing, and as of today, no responses have been received. And we also did notify the Midtown Community Council and the Taku Campbell Community Council and have not received comments from either community council. The request is consistent with the parcels classification within the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, and the planning department does recommend approval of the special land use permit subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any comments from the committee? I see Meg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to let you know, the Taku Campbell Community Council has been meeting somewhat intermittently and had some considerable technical issues throughout COVID and some leadership issues. So it is not surprising that there is no comment when prior there generally had been.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the committee?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Constant here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sidebar note, I just wanted to let folks know that we just received the $51 million from the U.S. Department of Treasury. Sidebar.
Wow. Oh, good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Pete.
Pete, go ahead.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that Mr. Daniel Clift has been a longtime member of the Scenic Foothills Community Council. And I know how much you feel that community councils are important. And so I just wanted to point that out to you. Thanks.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pete.
So a couple questions on this. I guess the landscaping is a fairly simple thing to deal with, but when you have two cultivation operations on the same property, and odor can be a challenge. And so this is, I guess, to Ryan, or Jack Frost is here. How are we, if there's an issue, how are we narrowing down whose odor that is?
We got our site plan approved. We haven't approved.
Oh, hold on. Hey, whoa, sorry. That hang on. So if that's the applicant, wait. If you can't just have, before you speak, you should identify yourself, because then it's for the record. But let me go to Ryan first with staff, and that'll go to you.
Yeah, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Ryan. That's a great question. I can't think off the top of my head of other cultivation facilities where there's two on the same lot. This may be the first where we've got two cultivations on the same lot. I can't speak for code enforcement, but I do know that they have a pretty extensive process for investigating odor. Of course, with determining wind direction and the distance between the two buildings, it does pose some difficulty in determining exactly where that odor is coming from. But it would be certainly an additional hurdle for the code enforcement to address and conduct a thorough investigation.
I think the standard policy is walk around and sniff at the four corners of the property, and that gets tricky on a larger property with two operations. So, okay. So I guess to the applicant, if one of you wants to speak to that or on any issue related to license, go ahead. But give your name before you speak, so it's clear for the record and for the rest of us.
Oh, okay. This is Daniel Clift, one of the owners of the Eagle Street plant, which is going to be located in this building over here. So I don't know exactly what the landscape comment was regarding. We do have an approved landscaping plan from 2017 that was approved after the establishment of Catalyst Cannabis in this building over here. We have had since then approval of our permit, including a final zoning inspection. Let me pull that up. And that included landscape, and that was completed back, final zoning completed back in the end of 2018. And I think maybe what's coming up with the landscape plantings issue is the fact that there are 2 marijuana facilities located on the same site. Typically, we would need site plan improvements done for every new cultivation. But in this case, it was already, the change of use to a cultivation had already been previously completed. So we're mailing that in, but I thought that might be part of the reasoning here.
Okay. Brian, can you address that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Daniel, that all looks good. The only thing is you just got to submit it to us, just the approved landscape plan. It's really that simple. And then the other thing is just the change of use. Since this is a brand new building, and it's a different building than Catalyst Cannabis, you would still need a change of use if this wasn't the first use that was established for that building, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. But actually, the change of use to marijuana on the second floor was previously approved when the original building was constructed. It was constructed and designed as a marijuana cultivation facility on the second level. And so it's just that it's being called a new building, but it's a few years old, and it was just absent and unoccupied for a couple of years. But when it was originally constructed, it was originally constructed as a cultivation.
Mr. Chair.
Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to understand, Brian, what's happening here. So you're saying it's a new building, and a new building requires a change of use?
So through the chair, this is Ryan. That's a good question. It doesn't require a change of use if the original use established for that building was marijuana cultivation, which it sounds like that's probably the case. So a change of use would not be required in that case. But if you got a new building that was constructed, say, for a vehicle repair shop, and then a year down the line it converts to a marijuana cultivation facility, then you would need a change of use.
Well, I'm sure all of this confusion is part of why we got the landscape comment. So we're just gonna send it in, and I'm sure it's fine.
Through the chair.
So this is separate.
Hold on. Let's get some order here. We gotta. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is a separate question, Danny, from your license application. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the procedure for that. So I guess maybe the change of use, if you think about it in the abstract, would be like if you had a big open space and you wanted to put furniture on the floor, you would need to upgrade to a sprinkler system if you didn't previously have it, even if the building was new, that kind of a thing.
Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing. And cultivations are built with heavy, really high requirements for floor loading, but there's a lot of zoning requirements for marijuana as well. So our landscaping plan is tied to the use of the space on the lot. So we kind of had an approved site plan that's good for future use of marijuana on the site because it was just a vacant space that was developed specifically for marijuana. So yeah, every element in the code is kind of looked at when we do a change of use. But in this case, the whole building was approved with a marijuana occupancy located on the second floor a couple of years ago. So that would be.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan.
It's all over the place.
Okay, and we have a comment in the chat from Ms. Weltzing. Landscape approved plan is already submitted to the planning department. Okay, so Ryan, just so if this were built, would it? I mean, what is the process for it? So you build a building and you designate what it'd be used for at that time, and if it were designated for cultivation, is that different than, marijuana cultivation?
Through the chair, this is Ryan. So I think one example could be, so you build a greenhouse and it's dedicated for commercial horticulture. Commercial horticulture is a different use within Title 21 than marijuana cultivation. So even though it'd be purpose-built for the raising of plants, they would still require a change of use just due to the fact that those are two separate defined uses in code.
So is that something you can check and make sure that it's got the same use?
Yes.
Or are you confident? Is that the situation now, or do you not know?
Yeah, I can definitely check that. That'll also be looked at as well before they do the final marijuana inspection to make sure all that paperwork's in order.
Okay. I mean, would you foresee any issue with that if it were under cultivation and not marijuana cultivation to I mean, what would that trigger that isn't already triggered?
It shouldn't trigger any additional, alterations of the site because it's already been evaluated, both through the building permit as well through the special land use permit. So the only thing that was missing from the special land use permit application, there was a landscape plan in there, but the planting detail and species list was missing. So essentially what you see on a landscape plan is the location of trees and shrubs, but without the planting detail and species list, you can't verify what those trees and shrubs are. So that's the one piece that we're missing, and that explains condition number 7. But you can file for a change of use permit after the fact if that's something that needs to be done. It shouldn't require any additional alterations to the site or floor plan.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. Any more questions from the committee?
Mr. Weddleton, I have one.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. I assume with all these technical questions related to getting the zoning and all the permits and everything exactly right, that these are things we can send conditionally to the clerk's office so that when they're satisfied, we approve it, they just get satisfied through that process. Is that correct?
Is that to Ryan?
Essentially to the clerk staff or Ryan.
Sure, I can speak to that. This is Ryan. Yeah, that's why it's a condition of approval, so the assembly can go ahead and approve this, license and special land use permit subject to these conditions, and then the applicant can just come in and resolve those conditions after the approval.
Okay. I guess any brief comments from the applicants or Ms. Weltzing?
Through the chair, this is Jana. I will just say, I mean, that did cause a little confusion because we really haven't had that request before specifically for cultivation to have like the species list of landscaping, but I don't want to delve back into that. It just seems different than applications before. It's already been approved and I've resubmitted it to Ryan this morning. Those things usually get sorted out through the zoning inspections, which these guys have already been through. So that's all I had to add. These are good operators. I don't think there's gonna be any problems with smell. They've got a very detailed smell control plan, and Catalyst has always been a really good licensee as well. So you got 2 good licensees in the same spot. It's a good thing.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any recommendation from the body, the committee?
We recommend approval to the body.
Second.
All right. Any opposition? Okay. So for the applicants, Mr. Hayes and Cliff, when we have our meeting on Tuesday and this comes up, usually later in the evening, we'll just mention that this was reviewed at the committee and that we had this discussion and that we had recommended approval. But that approval takes a vote of the full body on Tuesday. So I hope you can at least be available by phone just in case something comes up.
We
All
will
right,
be.
thanks everyone. Okay, so moving along, we've got superb cultivation. Mandy, do you want to go through that?
Yes. So this was the license review for superb cultivation license. They addressed all of the general license restrictions in their operating plan. They didn't have any taxes, fees, or fines found due. They addressed all the safety and security requirements in their operating plan as well. And all of their cultivation license specific requirements were also addressed adequately. So there's no additional conditions recommended for this license.
All right, thank you. And this one is Ryan again. Would you like to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So check here. Going over the cultivation. I've got these written up as one here, so I'll break them out between the cultivation. Cultivation facility within the I-2 district, and it's located west of the intersection of North Post Road and Wrangell Street within the Ship Creek Industrial District. Approximately 1,950 square feet of interior space will be dedicated to cultivation operations. They'll be open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. until midnight. And there is a attached and co-located retail, marijuana retail establishment under the same roof, and that's the corresponding case operate in conjunction. And the only special condition on this one was they have to resolve, ML&P was the original utility that went out and evaluated the property to see if they have sufficient power. So I just have a condition written to resolve with ML&P or its successor. They need to complete necessary upgrades to supply the intended load. That's condition number 6. And then the odor monitoring is condition number 7. We did mail out 76 public hearing notices on May 3rd, and we have not received any responses. Also notified the Government Hill Community Council and Mountain View Community Council and have not received responses from either of those as well. The site does have non-conforming rights for the lack of site perimeter landscaping as well as building encroachment on the south side of the lot. And just given the heavy industrial nature of this area, the request is consistent with the 2040 land use plan, and we do recommend approval subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report.
All right, thank you. So any questions from the committee? Okay, a question on this. So you did mailings on the applications we're looking at here on May 3rd for the previous ones and also this one. And here we are just a couple weeks later. And I wonder if that seems unusual that it's kind of nice that we've gotten fast on these in a sense. I guess one of these has been lingering for 3 years, but but that's fast to get community council comments. Is this, we've not usually been this close, the mailing this close to when it comes to the committee and the assembly, have we?
So through the chair, this is Ryan. We try and get those mailers out. Previously, we were mailing the public hearing notices out, as soon as we had a complete application. But recently, we've changed that to be closer to that 21-day requirement so that it's a little fresher in the public's mind. Because oftentimes, we were getting feedback that, they would get this piece of mail and then, think like, oh, I need to submit a comment and then never submit it. But this definitely keeps it fresher in the public's mind. But as far as the community councils are routed a copy of the applications once we send those to all reviewing agencies. And we do that shortly after the application is deemed complete. So although the formal notice of public hearing wasn't sent out until May 3rd, they do get a copy of the application, and I would assume that would have been, I don't have the exact date in front of me, but probably would have been early April.
Okay. Yeah, that's important then. Is it unusual to have no comment from Government Hill Community Council on these?
Through the chair, there aren't very many marijuana facilities within Government Hill Community Council, and the ones that are within the Ship Creek industrial area. And I don't believe that we have received comments from Government Hill Community Council on either of those. I think there's 3 down in Ship Creek area, and I don't believe we received comments on either of them.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any other questions on this one? And we have an applicant here. Would you like to speak for a moment?
Yes.
Ms. Velasco?
Michelle Velasco. Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Yeah, we are in the process of upgrading all the electrical in the building to meet those requirements. And we met with the community council, and they didn't even know that we were in that in their community council area. So they verified that we were, and they had no qualms. We answered and all their questions that they had and whatnot. So we have been in touch with the community council, and I do listen in on all the community meetings as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for the record, Chris Constant, Forrest Dunbar, and Jamie Allard have left the room. Okay, so do we have a quorum, Mandy?
Let's see. So I have Meg, you, and Pete. So with 2 of them leaving, we do not anymore.
Okay. So for this, I don't, it wouldn't be proper to have a recommendation of approval or not. So we'll just go forward with this one without a recommendation. Okay, let's scribble a quick note. Okay, so on to the next one for the same location, Superb Retail. Mandy, can you review that quickly?
Yes. So same applicant, Superb. This is for their retail license application. All of the previous reviews applied to this application as well. Specifically, the retail license requirements were also addressed, and so there's no conditions recommended for, no extra conditions recommended for this license either.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Ryan. Without just restating what I did before, this is 450 square feet of available interior space dedicated to retail sales. Hours of operation will be 7 days a week from 10 a.m. until midnight. The only special condition that we've added to the retail, and it's kind of an interesting one, but this is part in code in the use regulations to where a marijuana retail facility can only be within the I-2 if it's attached and co-located with either a cultivation facility or a marijuana manufacturing facility. And that's sort of the opposite of what we typically see when we have cultivation within the B3. And the purpose of this section of code is to just preserve the industrial nature of the I-2 district. So essentially this condition just states that if the cultivation facility license were to ever expire, the special land use permit were to expire, then the retail license and special land use permit will also expire.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the committee? Okay, I've got one is you have in there that the floor plan needs to be changed. I see some different square footage. Is this, it looks like the retail grew and the slightly and the cultivation shrank slightly? Or is that what the issue was? That's to Ryan.
Through the chair, correct. Yeah, I think there was just some minor discrepancies between the floor plan that was submitted under the state application and the floor plan that was submitted under the municipal application. So it's just puts the applicant on notice to kind of sort that out with AMCO.
Okay, so we'll go, okay, I guess to the applicant, Ms. Velasco, so you're aware of this issue?
Yes, I will submit the new plans to AMCO. Yeah, we just had to change a little. We wanted to make a couple little rooms a little bit bigger with the cultivation. Excuse me. Some different room changes so that we could utilize the space a little better. But I will submit to AMCO the updated plans.
All right, thank you. It's good to get these right. You're in a highly regulated business, as you know pretty well. And then yeah. There are some triggers if over time you learn that you want a different layout. I think we've raised the trigger fairly high on when you would have to come back and show that you've increased the space or decrease it or whatever. So closer you get to actual, saves you some trouble further down at least saves you some paperwork. So, all right, thank you. Is there a MOU with the community council for the retail? I guess first to Ryan and then to Ms. Velasco.
Through the chair, this is Ryan. I believe a community engagement report was submitted. Okay. I don't believe we have an MOU unless one has been drafted since the application has been submitted.
Okay. Is that community engagement report basically the same thing? Or is that just from the applicant?
Yeah, the community engagement report was submitted by the applicant. It's not quite the same as an MOU, but it does meet the standard. The standard is submit either an MOU or a community engagement report.
Okay.
That was put in the regulations early on because we still do have some community councils that are hesitant to enter into some type of signed agreement with marijuana facilities.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Velasco, did you talk to the community council? I mean, a lot of the MOU is generally saying, here's our contact information and who to call if something comes up. Did that happen?
Yes, I did send them all my contact information, and like I said, I've attended the community council meetings, and when it was our turn to have when our license came up at the community meeting, they approved it, seeing as it was in Chip Creek area and not actually like in the residential area. So they really didn't have any qualms about it. And I did send them all my information on how to get in contact with me as well.
Very good, thank you. Okay, well, again, on this one, without a quorum, we can't go forward with a recommendation. So, Ms. Velasco, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Meg.
Meg.
If we end up getting the quorum back, could we just hold that portion? I'm assuming that if Mr. Dunbar comes back, he'll have reviewed the packet and we can see if we have time to take that up at the end.
That'd be fine, sure.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so we'll just set those aside for now. And Ms. Velasco, if you can be there, at least get on the phone list for Tuesday, and something comes up, we'd be able to call you. Would be possibly beneficial.
Yeah, you're speaking about the meeting on Tuesday, the 25th.
Correct.
Yes, I'm planning to be there. Phone in like today, so I will be on the line for the meeting.
Mandy, is that are people allowed to be on? Is there a phone number for them to be on the line and listening for the duration of the meeting, or is that something where we'd have their phone number and call them if something came up?
There is a number that they can call and listen in, or there's the streaming online. If there is comments, then we'll need to have the phone number, and the clerk will call during that time for them to make comments. The call-in is just audio only unless we get their number to call them back.
Okay. So Ms. Velasco, that might seem a little awkward. If you email the clerk, they can send you the, or send them your phone number. You could get on that list, and because typically we would call you.
Yeah, I actually emailed them prior to this meeting, and I did receive a response from Jennifer and Barbara, and they said that that I may use the conference bridge number to connect to the meeting, and that it plugs me directly into the meeting, and that they asked me to remain on mute, and they gave me that number as 907-343-6088. I'm not sure if that's the same number I can make comments on or whatnot.
I think, Mandy, that should work, right?
Yeah, whatever Barbara and Jennifer said to do, that's the way they want it done. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with that. The meeting may go long, and if it goes long, we may. I'm not certain, but we're starting to pile a lot of stuff on that meeting. So, and these applications just for many reasons end up at the end of the meeting. So,
Understandable.
Anyway, just a warning. So you can listen in and do your gardening or something while you're listening. So, okay. So moving on. Thank you, everyone. So the next issue is we are back on the proposed changes to Title 1080 and Title 21 for the marijuana. And we are actually very far along on this. And we had a few remaining issues and from last time. And we have a couple on this agenda, the outdoor cultivation. What are we going to do with that? And I don't think we had quite a resolution on that. The fees, I think we were going to leave them unchanged, but we were looking for Jack Frost to maybe consolidate the long list into fewer. And I haven't seen that consolidation yet. I think we had an issue on defining trade shows, and then triggers for assembly review, which Crystal had been pretty intent on, but I don't know that we had anything really clear stated on that. And then we discussed possibly looking at the various separation and protected uses and, maybe consolidating those or adding or decreasing those. So those, I think, were remaining issues. And I think from the committee, it's, we should decide, are we going to, we could try to work these out on the committee, or are we ready to get Dean to kind of take what we have, put it forward and get it in the process? Megan, Pete.
Yep, I'm ready to move forward. I think that the sooner we can get it kind of almost out of this committee and before the members, we'll have the broader discussion and probably a couple of work sessions on this that might either bring forward more changes or conversation around what amendments may come forward if introduced.
Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had discussed the fines a couple of times, and since there's been very few problems in the industry recently, I was talking to Mr. Frost about this, and he thought there was not a need to increase the fines. So, they're already in compliance. Why would we want to raise fines? And that seemed to make sense to me. Mm-hmm. But if this is a discussion, we at some point are going to have to move forward to the assembly as a whole. And since we don't really have a quorum here right now, I'm not sure. We can have discussions right now. We can't make any recommendations or decisions at this point.
Well, I think we could make a decision to ask Dean to go ahead and get it in the system. And I think regarding the fees, in my notes, we had agreed that we would not offer changes, when we move forward to the dollar amounts. But,
Right.
Jack had said it was a pretty extensive list. There's just so many, and he felt that it's possible that it could just be consolidated to fewer line items, without changing the actual dollar fees. Is that, I don't know, Mandy or Dean, I mean, can this committee decide today to go ahead and take where we are now and move it forward, into the regular process to the assembly?
Yeah, the committee can decide to push it through, and I'll let Dean finish, but yeah.
Okay, Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that technically you can't conduct business without the quorum. And so would say the committee push it through committee actions by majority vote when you have a quorum, that's action. So I technically don't want to kind of characterize it that way. But an ordinance has sponsors, up to 3 members can sponsor. And usually when we have committee, we consider the chair of the committee or co-chairs sponsors. So the way I've been viewing this is that co-chairs Weddleton and Kennedy are sponsors of this ordinance. When it's introduced and it's public, other members can join as co-sponsors as well. So I think that the co-chairs can certainly direct me to push this ordinance forward. I will send them an updated draft, and that's one of the things I was going to. I raised my hand to mention if I could address the fines issue as well, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please do.
Yes, and I had talked to Mr. Frost also, and I might have mentioned this at the last meeting. And like Mr. Welton, you were saying, consolidating some of the fines is absolutely something that we want to do. And Jack and I have the concept in mind where so much of these are the same amount, $500 fines. And since they're all Title 10, or if there's other, but most of them are Title 10 based sections for which the fines are imposed. And we can, in the Title 10 enforcement article, Chapter 1080, Article 8, I think, have a section that's very similar to what we have in our traffic code. If you get our traffic code, there's a penalties section that has like A, B, C, D, E, and A's. Everything in this section is a $500 fine, unless otherwise stated. And then we have some sections that are specifically more. We have the B for this much, $1,000 fine, for example. C, these offenses are $2,000 fines, and D, these offenses are Class B misdemeanors. So we will want to structure it that way, and that will remove a majority of that huge list we have in the fine schedule in Title 14, most of which are $500 fines. We would just say everything's a $500 fine unless otherwise stated in this section. And so I hope that gives you a good idea of how that section will look. And if you wanted to look at the code in Title IX, I can pull it up on screen for you quickly. I believe the section is.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank
you.
Sorry, I'm sorry, what's that?
Yes, please go ahead and bring that up.
Just give me a moment. I mean, if you wanted to comment on what I just said, I'll pull it up in just a moment.
Well, Pete and Meg, what's your sense here? I mean, I'll check with Crystal and see what she wants to do. But if we kind of go with a consolidated list of fees and fines, or would you be more comfortable keeping the fees and fines as they look right now and then have an amendment to shrink it down?
I like the latter option. I guess I would rather have that discussion kind of more broadly in a work session with more members.
So I guess I've pulled it up on screen. And I've highlighted unless another penalty is expressly provided, it's $500. So we would do this in our chapter 1080, something similar. And here, as you see, we have this 2000, and here that's a class B misdemeanor, and D is a class A misdemeanor. And then there's some other like particulars here, so you can deal with the fines in this, which is obviously much shorter than the multi-page listing of fines and the fine schedule that you've seen. And this is the direction, Jack, and I recommend we go.
Okay.
Chapter
So,
9.
so Dean, so if we move forward, is this something that if we leave the fees and fine schedule as it is now, and then make this change through an amendment or an S version, will that work okay?
Well, the posture of this right now is it hasn't been introduced, so we will just add it to our working draft. And if it's not coming back to the committee, we will have the co-chairs look at it. If this will also include amendment to Title 14, and we'll just add it to our working draft AO, but amendment to Title 14 that will change a lot of what it says, but we will kind of have a correlation so that the process won't change. There's a different process for these traffic fines, but that's the structure. We will have this section in 1080. It will refer to Title 14. Title 14 will have something very simple, structured the same way, so that we won't be changing the process where fines, these are civil fines, will be sent to the administrative hearing officer. We don't want to change that process. I haven't heard any notion or idea or suggestion to change that process, just to change how the fines are structured.
Okay, Meg, thoughts on that?
I'm okay with that. I think I'm not so worried about changing how the fines are structured. I think I just want to ensure that there's flexibility when there needs to be. But I do tend to agree with Pete that, we haven't had any considerable issues in a while. So I'm okay taking Dean's advice and lead to start. I think it's going to be an area of large conversation when this gets before the full body. So maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. But it seems to be an area where folks are going to want to be ready to prepare for both what's happening and worst case type scenarios.
So are you speaking to the whole broader changes, or do you mean the fee and fine, the rewording of the fees and fines?
The rewording of the fees and fines. I
Okay.
think there will be some conversation and some requests to, from members who aren't a part of this committee about like what's happened in the past. Tell us about some of those worst case situations. What were you able to do? And I think that will bring up a lot of discussion.
Okay. I wonder, is Ms. Weltzine still with us?
Yes, I am.
I wonder if you could, you've followed this discussion at several meetings. So what is the sense that, if you're operating this and you have this detailed list of fees and fines, you kind of know exactly what's what. And if it's consolidated, are you able to see what we're looking at now where Dean's got the traffic penalties shown?
Yes, I'm able to see.
Okay. So, you deal with this a lot. Which makes you more comfortable?
Well, I think I've mentioned this before, is the state's considering a really encompassing fine chart that has escalated fines for certain activities or violations, and then different, fines for different violations. I think that if you're looking at creating a fine chart, you should just wait until that actually gets implemented, because otherwise it might be kind of a hodgepodge mess. Because you might want to just mirror that same fine chart. It's a little bit difficult when we don't have set out expectations of things like how you do have in this ordinance that Dean has up. On the other hand, like we have been really good licensees so far, and maybe Dean knows, but I'm not sure if there's an equivalent alcohol fine chart. So I recall Jack Frost mentioning last meeting, or maybe the meeting before, that he wasn't really thinking that this was necessary. So I mean, I would just like to wait to see what the state does and then circle back if it was up to me.
So just leave it just like it is now with the detailed list, because we're not really changing the fines. We're just shrinking the way they're discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that we should revisit it once the state has theirs, because the state's the state's been working with the industry to, like, we've been having work sessions and working on this really encompassing fine chart. And I just really think it's going to be a lot more helpful of a discussion if you just kind of wait until that's in place, because it pretty much addresses everything.
Okay. And when do you think they'll have that done?
Well, I should be on the agenda for discussion with the control board at the end of June, and then they would have to put it out for a formal public comment. Because like I said, we've had a work session on it where the industry has participated and the control board's public safety seat, Lieutenant Jaime, he's been participating in that discussion heavily. And so it should go out for public comment this week. I'm sorry, I apologize. At the end of June, if the MCB votes to approve it to go out to public comment, and then that would go out for either 60 or 90 days, and then be considered probably in the October, November MCB meeting. So you'd see it go into effect slightly before the first of the next year.
Okay. Well, that's
kind of a long process.
Okay. So Megan, Pete, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that it makes perfect sense. I was not aware that the Alcohol and Marijuana Control Board was in the process of making any changes, and so it could be confusing if we change our fine schedule and then a couple of months later they change theirs. You know, I think waiting actually probably makes the most sense at this point, now that we're aware that there might be changes coming from the state.
All right, thanks. Meg?
I concur. I don't want to have to go back and do it again or create confusion. I don't know that it has to hold up the rest of our changes. We would just hold in this particular area.
Okay, well, that's good. And I see Dean's put on the screen kind of the comparable liquor license rules too. Much lower fines. So, okay. Well, Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, and I actually think they're using some different fines and not these. But the Chapter 1050's alcohol premises operations that are in our code. But yeah, these are low and outdated, and I don't think they're actually being utilized. But I just pulled it up, and I think that there's been chatter every now and then over the years about getting this updated. But I wanted to mention, in terms of going forward, there's no reason I think that you couldn't simply move forward with all the changes that we've discussed for our Title 10 and the fine schedule. Just do it by separate ordinance when we have when the Alcohol and Marijuana Control Board has issued their changes, and then kind of mirror it in a separate ordinance. I guess, I mean, that would sort of put off the change that we talked about for the fines, but there's no reason we couldn't do it that way.
All right, thank you, Dean. And the changes we propose don't change the actual fines, so it just consolidates the list. So we're not really moving too far. So I think it makes sense to hold off a bit, see what the state does. Okay, so that is the last item on the agenda. I don't see that Chris or Forrest have returned to kind of go back and readdress the two licenses for Superb. Any comments from the committee? We could adjourn.
Yeah, if they're not back and we don't have a quorum, I mean, it's too bad, but that's okay. We can still report out that we discussed the licenses.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, all right, thanks, Pete. Okay, we ready to adjourn?
What about
Mr.
audience
Chair, do you want to do?
Oh, I'm
any
sorry.
public
Thank you.
participation?
Audience participation. Mr. Haberman, go ahead. Thank you.
I'm looking for my timer, but I can't find. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Hold a second. Okay. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, a decision made by the governing body is more likely the public interest. Number one, in the beginning of the meeting, this meeting, you started the meeting and you did a roll call to determine if you had a quorum or not. It was determined that you did not have a quorum, and the staff representative from the community said it's okay as long as you don't do a vote. When it came time to identify respectively other people that were in the meeting from the public, I spoke to identify myself and simply said, you cannot have a meeting unless you have a quorum. And then I was interrupted, but the staff person says we now have a quorum. If you're going to hold a meeting, you need to determine you have a quorum, and you need to maintain the record that you still have a quorum. Even during this meeting, there was instances where it was determined that you didn't have a quorum later on, so you simply said, okay, we'll do a vote, and then maybe later we'll do a vote when we have a quorum. You can't be conducting meetings without have a legal meeting without the proper number of people that should be attending that are presiding before the meeting. And the end result is this is really terrible. I'm glad there's an audio. And by the way, all the respect, I'm glad in this meeting there was an opportunity where you can join in the computer and click on and visually see a meeting, whereas many of the meetings, the committees don't have that option. This committee does that. And the one that follows the committee meeting on enterprise, all the public's going to be able to do that's coming up is just basically listen in, and there's no click to join the meeting to visually see the meeting. So your committee is better, but on the issue of quorum and legal, even holding the meeting, it's totally out of line. And complicit of that is you've got the assembly attorney present, and he even says the words about conducting a meeting in reference to quorum, and the fact is it's ignored. So with all due respect, you need to cease and desist this thing. And I know there's attorneys that are from the marijuana industry here. Please note this and to get a copy of those records, because this doesn't make your issues that you want to address any more legal than what just happened here. Thank you very much. With 26 seconds to spare.
All right, thank you, Mr. Haberman. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? I think if you're just on the phone, you would hit *6. Okay, I don't hear anyone. So Dean, I wonder, can you address that? I mean, if we don't have a quorum for a committee meeting, do we just end the meeting, or are we allowed to discuss things or still continue a conversation?
So this is Dean. You know, it's a finely nuanced thing. And I mean, the code says that no business can be conducted, and doing business basically is by an action, you know, so that's how I've advised in the past. You know, the safest thing to do, of course, at any time is just adjourn, then there's no question, there's no gray area and so forth. And I've advised, though, that we do have in our public meetings, chapter 125, an allowance for informative meetings that can be less than a quorum and so forth, where you're just getting information. And so, in my opinion, committee meetings like this, you don't have a quorum. Well, you can have information. The meeting's already been publicly noticed. That's the Open Meetings Act requirement, that the meeting's been noticed and it's open to the public. And so the quorum requirement's a separate thing. The quorum requirement isn't related to the Open Meetings Act. So you've already noticed the meeting of the committee, and it's open to the public like it is here. And but have you conducted business? You only did a couple votes at the beginning. You had a quorum. You did no votes, no business, but you shared a little information when there was no quorum. So that's the nuanced thing. And of course, it's, I think a lot depends on the comfort level of the chairs. If you want to be perfectly safe and have no question out there about it, just adjourn when there's no quorum. If you want to get information because you're here or in an open meeting that's been publicly noticed, you can, of course, share the information. Just don't take any action or conduct any business.
So the definition of taking action, because I felt like, once we had no quorum, it was simply, we didn't really take any action, but just discussed and got information. And then taking action with that, is there, we didn't take any votes on recommendations or anything. Are there other things we could do that would be under that umbrella of taking action?
I would say debating things, but I don't think there was some debate here. It's just, here's the information, and then you do have, you didn't make any vote on how to move forward. There was a discussion of information in various ways this could move forward, but I don't have any direction for it yet. And maybe, I will talk to offline the co-chairs and see what they want to direct, and that's not conducting business in the committee. That's conducting business of an individual assembly member who's sponsoring an ordinance. So, like I said, it's a little finely nuanced here, but I just want to be transparent about that. And I don't think that generally, I feel a little comfortable also, because the only thing is sending it forward to the assembly, which is where the real business is conducted by a majority vote, pass an ordinance, that's got to be introduced and have a public hearing and all of that. So here at this committee level, even if there's some objection and there's some legitimate argument about it, I think the remedy is very harmless. It goes to an assembly, nothing happens with this ordinance, and no law changes. There's no effect of it, until it goes through a much more elaborate and detailed public process.
Okay, thank you. And that was my sense, making a decision to continue. We have public here gathered and noticed, and there's an opportunity to get more information on the proposed changes and so on. So, okay, well, thank you, Dean.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Thank you. By the time we had finished introducing the people, we had a quorum. I tried to sign in and I had to reboot this morning, so it took an extra couple minutes. I don't think it was a big deal at all. I think Mr. Haberman is blowing this completely out of realistic expectations.
All right, thank you. Mr. Haberman keeps us on our toes.
Should I respond just briefly, please, respectfully?
Okay, briefly, Mr. Haberman.
That couple of minutes, that is correct. It immediately got a quorum. Later in the meeting, a substantial portion of the meeting, there was no quorum. It was identified with Assemblymember Wellington recognized that we lost a quorum, and then you decided not to do a vote. So you got a substantial part of the meeting without a quorum. The issue is if you don't have a quorum, you don't have a meeting. And when you end a quorum, you need to stop the meeting, end the story. And the guidance from the Assembly Legal Counsel is misguided. That is what you need to do. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chair, for giving me a chance to respond.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Haberman. Okay, I think we're done. Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right, thank you. All right, see you all at the next one.